Step out of the car, you stuck-up hood rat, Officer Trent Sloan barked, his words slicing through the stillness of a late-afternoon suburb. Naomi Caldwell sat poised in her red sedan, hands visible, voice calm, too calm for the kind of woman he thought she was. In seconds, he dragged her out, slamming her against the hood before locking his arm around her throat. Neighbors watched in horror as she gasped for air, her vision dimming. Then, with the last of her strength, Naomi tore open her jacket, revealing a Homeland security badge that gleamed in the sun and ended his career. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet suburban street. Naomi's sedan gleamed under the warm glow of porch lights and the fading sunlight, its pristine condition a testament to her careful maintenance since Michael's death. The radio's soft melody faded as she clicked off the ignition, her peaceful mood shattered by the aggressive flash of red and blue lights behind her. Officer Sloan's cruiser had appeared so suddenly in her rearview mirror that she barely had time to process his presence before his lights came on. She'd chosen this spot carefully, well lit, security cameras visible, witnesses present, everything by the book, just as she'd been trained. Exit the vehicle immediately. Sloan's voice carried across the quiet neighborhood, sharp and hostile. Several residents looked up from their porches, their faces a mixture of concern and uncertainty. Naomi kept her movements deliberate and clear. "I'm reaching for my license," she called out, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. Her hands moved slowly toward her purse on the passenger seat. The driver's side door yanked open with such force that it rocked the entire car. Sloan's face appeared, flushed and contorted with barely contained anger. "This vehicle is reported stolen. Get out now." "There must be a mistake," Naomi said, maintaining her composure. "This was my husband's car. It's registered in my name now." "Shut up!" Sloan grabbed her wrist, his fingers digging into her skin. "I said out!" Before she could fully comply, he yanked her from the seat. The momentum sent her stumbling, but he didn't let her regain her balance. Instead, he slammed her against the hood of her own car. The metal was still warm from the drive, pressing against her cheek as he twisted her arm behind her back. "Stop resisting!" he shouted, though she hadn't moved a muscle. "I'm not resisting," Naomi managed to say, her training warring with rising panic. "If you'll just let me show you my ID." The pressure on her arm increased, and then suddenly there was an arm around her throat. Sloan's chokehold tightened, cutting off her air supply. Her free hand instinctively went to her throat, trying to create space to breathe. Across the street, Camilla Reyes stood frozen on the sidewalk, her phone raised and recording. She'd been about to start her evening shift driving rideshare when she'd witnessed Sloan's cruiser tear into the quiet street. Now her hands shook as she captured the horrifying scene unfolding before her, torn between the need to document and the urge to help. Black spots danced at the edges of Naomi's vision. The world began to tilt and spin as her oxygen-starved brain struggled to function. She could hear voices, distant shouts, the sound of another siren approaching, the scrape of shoes on pavement as bystanders shifted uncertainly. With the last of her strength, Naomi forced words past her constricted throat. "My ID!" she gasped. The edges of her vision were growing darker. Left pocket. Homeland security. Sloan's grip tightened further. His breath was hot against her ear as he snarled, "Nice try, lady." The siren grew louder, cutting through the humid evening air. Naomi's legs began to buckle, her consciousness slipping away like water through cupped hands. Her last coherent thought was of her mother, Lila, waiting for her call to confirm she'd made it home safely. Camilla's phone captured it all. The way Naomi's body went slack, the arrival of the second patrol car, the growing crowd of horrified onlookers. The evening sun caught the doorbell cameras on nearby houses, their red recording lights blinking steadily, bearing silent witness to what was unfolding below. The air was thick with tension and the lingering heat of the day. The sound of car doors opening and closing, of radios crackling with dispatcher traffic, of murmured conversations among the gathering crowd, it all mixed with the steady hum of distant lawnmowers and cicadas, the soundtrack of a summer evening gone wrong. Sloan maintained his chokehold, seemingly deaf to the gasps and protests from the onlookers. His face was set in grim determination, jaw clenched, as though this display of force was the most natural thing in the world. The badge on his chest caught the light as he shifted his stance, a bitter reminder of the authority he was abusing. The wail of approaching sirens pierced the humid evening air. Tires screeched against asphalt as another patrol car pulled into the neighborhood street, its red and blue lights painting the scene in harsh, alternating colors. Officer Dan Holt jumped out, his rookie eagerness falling away as he took in the situation before him. His eyes widened at the sight of Sloan maintaining a chokehold on a clearly unconscious woman. "What are you doing?" Holt shouted, his hand instinctively moving to his body cam to ensure it was recording. "Let her go." Sloan barely glanced at his fellow officer. "Stolen vehicle suspect," he grunted, maintaining his grip. "She's resisting." "She's not moving!" Holt's voice cracked with disbelief. The growing crowd of onlookers pressed closer, phones raised like accusatory fingers. Camila Reyes had moved to a better vantage point, her hands steady now as she continued filming. The pressure on Naomi's throat suddenly lessened as Sloan adjusted his stance. The slight release was enough. Her eyes fluttered open, consciousness rushing back in a painful wave. Years of training kicked in. With her free arm, she seized the moment, jerking her jacket open. The gold badge clipped to her belt caught the soft glow of the porch lights, its federal seal unmistakable. Holt's breath caught in his throat. As a rookie, he'd studied federal credentials extensively during academy training. The Homeland Security Investigations badge was distinctive, impossible to miss, impossible to fake. His body cam whirred softly, capturing everything. "No way," he whispered, then louder. "Sloan, that's HSI! Let her go now!" The change in Sloan's expression was immediate. The arrogant certainty drained from his face, replaced by dawning horror. His grip loosened further, but his arms seemed frozen in place. "That's fake," he muttered, but his voice trembled with uncertainty. "Has to be fake." Holt was already at his radio. "Dispatch, Unit 247. We need a supervisor at Maplewood Drive, now. We've got a situation involving a federal agent." Naomi's legs were shaking, but she remained upright through sheer force of will. Her throat burned with each breath, and she could feel the bruises forming where Sloan's arm had crushed her windpipe. The crowd's murmuring grew louder, punctuated by the clicks of camera phones. The radio crackled. A sergeant's voice cut through the static. "All units stand down immediately. Release the subject. I repeat, release and stand down." Sloan's arms finally fell away. Naomi stumbled forward, catching herself against her car. Her fingers found her throat, gently probing the tender flesh as she fought to control her breathing. The rage building inside her was cold and precise, a federal agent's fury, not a victim's fear. With deliberate movements, she reached into her jacket pocket and retrieved her credentials wallet. The leather slapped against the hood as she dropped it, the sound sharp in the tense silence. She opened it with one hand, displaying her official HSI identification card alongside her badge. "Officer Sloan," she said, her voice raspy but clear. "You just assaulted a federal officer during the course of her duties." She turned to face him fully, noting how he seemed to shrink under her gaze. "I trust your body cam captured the entire incident?" Sloane's face had gone chalk white. His eyes darted to Holt's still recording camera, then to the phones in the crowd, and finally to the suburban neighborhood's security cameras. The weight of all that electronic evidence seemed to physically press down on his shoulders. "I'm finished," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Oh God, I'm finished." The screech of more tires announced the arrival of both paramedics and a supervisor's vehicle. The emergency lights created a dizzying light show that reflected off the windows of Naomi's sedan, the supposedly stolen car that had started this whole nightmare. Naomi allowed herself to sit on the curb, her professional mask slipping just enough to show her exhaustion. The paramedics approached cautiously, their equipment ready. Behind them, she could see Sloane being led aside by a sergeant, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Camera flashes popped like summer lightning as more people gathered. Phones pinged with notifications as the first videos began uploading to social media. Camila Reyes, still filming, had tears running down her face, but her hand remained steady. Officer Holt stood awkwardly nearby, his body cam still faithfully recording. His face showed the struggle of a young officer witnessing the ugly reality of power abused. He kept glancing between Naomi and Sloane, as if trying to understand how a routine traffic stop had spiraled into career suicide. The paramedics began their examination, their voices professional and soothing as they checked Naomi's vital signs. The bruises on her throat were darkening rapidly, forming a damning collar of evidence. One of them carefully photographed her injuries, standard procedure for an assault case. More police vehicles arrived, creating a barricade of flashing lights that held back the growing crowd. Neighbors had stepped out from their homes, gathering on porches and sidewalks, their phones raised to record the scene. Porch lights blinked on up and down the street, painting the chaos in warm, uneven light. An elderly man stood at the edge of his driveway, torn between concern and disbelief at the spectacle unfolding in his quiet neighborhood. Dawn crept through the hospital room's thin curtains, casting pale strips of light across the sterile floor. Naomi sat propped up in bed, her throat wrapped in bandages, while monitors beeped a steady rhythm beside her. Her mother Lila's warm hand squeezed hers, offering silent comfort as they both watched the morning news. "Shocking footage emerged last night," the anchor's voice filled the quiet room, "of what appears to be a police officer assaulting a federal agent during a routine traffic stop." The now viral video played again, Naomi's body going limp in the chokehold, the flash of her badge, the officer's panicked reaction. Lila's grip tightened. "Baby, I can't watch this anymore." Her eyes were red and puffy from a night without sleep. "Every time they show it, I see my little girl being—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm okay, Mama," Naomi rasped, her voice still rough. The doctor had warned the throat bruising would take weeks to heal completely. "I'm right here." A knock at the door interrupted them. Special Agent in Charge. Imani Sharp entered, her usual commanding presence somewhat softened by concern. She carried a thick manila folder under one arm. "Agent Caldwell," Sharp said, pulling up a chair. "How are you holding up?" "Ready to get back to work," Naomi replied, trying to sit straighter despite her mother's protective hand on her shoulder. Sharp's expression turned serious. "That's what we need to discuss. The department's filing an official complaint, but this is going to be delicate." She placed the folder on the bedside table. "My advice? Stay low profile. Let the process work." Naomi shook her head, wincing at the movement. "With respect, ma'am, I want to press formal charges. That officer needs to face consequences." "Naomi," Sharp leaned forward, lowering her voice, "you know how these things can go. The union will close ranks. They'll dig for anything to discredit you." "Then let them dig." Naomi's voice may have been weak, but her eyes blazed. "I've got 20 years of clean service and a chokehold on camera. I'm not backing down. Lila squeezed her daughter's hand again. You tell them, baby. Sharp sat back, a hint of pride breaking through her professional mask. I'll have the paperwork started, but please, be careful. This could get ugly. Another knock drew their attention. A young Latina woman stood hesitantly in the doorway. Camila Reyes, the rideshare driver who'd recorded everything. Her eyes were shadowed from lack of sleep, but she straightened her shoulders as she entered. I'm sorry to interrupt, Camila said. I needed to make sure you were okay. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands. I saw everything. I got it all on video, better quality than what's on TV. I couldn't just drive away, not when he was hurting you like that. Naomi gestured for Camila to come closer. You did exactly right. Thank you for being brave enough to stay and record. I was so scared, Camila admitted, but more scared of what would happen if nobody saw the truth. She glanced nervously at Sharp. The police already called me 3 times asking for the video. I didn't answer. Smart girl, Sharp nodded. We'll need to get your statement properly documented. And we can arrange protection if you feel unsafe. Camilla's relief was visible. Thank you. I just want to help make this right. After Camila left, Naomi insisted on meeting with an internal affairs liaison. Despite her mother's protests, she changed into fresh clothes that Lila had brought from home. The simple act of putting on her professional attire helped steel her resolve. The liaison's office was cramped and windowless, but Naomi sat tall despite her injuries. I want all footage preserved, she stated firmly. Body cams, dash cams, doorbell cameras, and home security feeds. Everything. Of course, Agent Caldwell, the liaison replied, typing rapidly. We're already collecting all available evidence. And I want confirmation that Officer Sloan's previous complaint records are secured. No convenient misfilings. The typing paused. That might require additional authorization. Then get it, Naomi said flatly, because this isn't going away. Hours later, exhausted but determined, Naomi finally returned to her apartment. The space felt emptier than usual, heavy with silence after the day's chaos. Her throat throbbed as she swallowed her prescribed pain medication. Settling at her desk, she picked up her badge, running her fingers over the familiar weight and texture. He picked the wrong one this time, she whispered to the quiet room. Her computer hummed to life, its blue glow illuminating her face as she began downloading police data reports. The familiar process of gathering digital evidence centered her, gave her purpose beyond the pain and anger. Lila had offered to stay the night, but Naomi needed this time alone. She needed to remember who she was, not a victim, but an investigator. Someone who knew how to follow evidence trails and expose truth. Her fingers moved steadily across the keyboard, each keystroke a quiet act of defiance against those who thought they could abuse power without consequence. Naomi's apartment was quiet, except for the gentle hum of her coffee maker and the low murmur of the morning news. Sunlight streamed through her kitchen windows, casting warm patches on the granite countertop where she'd spread out her breakfast and laptop. Her throat still ached when she swallowed, the bruises now a mottled purple-yellow beneath her silk scarf. The local news anchor's voice cut through her thoughts. 2 days after the controversial traffic stop involving a federal agent, body cam footage from Officer Sloan's patrol remains unavailable due to what police describe as a technical upload failure. Coffee sloshed over the rim of her mug as Naomi set it down too hard. Her eyes narrowed at the screen where the anchor continued speaking over B-roll footage of police headquarters. According to department spokesperson Lieutenant Morris, the footage was lost during routine end-of-shift upload procedures. IT staff cite server timeout issues as the cause. Timeout issues my foot, Naomi muttered, pushing aside her half-eaten toast. She opened her secure laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard, as she accessed her old federal compliance records. 2 years ago, she'd spent 3 months auditing the department's digital evidence systems. She knew exactly how their upload protocols worked. The department used standard Blue Line software for managing body cam data. It had triple redundancy and automatic backup protocols. Even if the main server crashed, footage would cache locally on the camera until upload was confirmed. A total loss of data would require multiple simultaneous failures, or deliberate tampering. Naomi pulled up the public metadata logs, which tracked upload timestamps for all officer cameras. She created a quick script to analyze the pattern, watching as data points populated her screen. There, a 7-minute window where multiple uploads had failed simultaneously. Not just Sloan's camera, but his partner's too, and 2 nearby units. Her heart began to race. She recognized this pattern. She'd written about it in her white paper on digital evidence vulnerabilities. The timeout cascade exploit could wipe specific time ranges if you knew the system's refresh cycles. It was precise, surgical, and definitely not accidental. Naomi reached for her phone, scrolling through contacts until she found Gabe Park's number. She'd met him during the compliance audit when he was handling back-end maintenance for the city's IT department. He'd struck her as honest, if a bit nervous around authority figures. The phone rang 4 times before he picked up. "Naomi?" His voice was hushed. "I saw what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Gabe. I need to ask you about some upload logs from Tuesday night." She kept her tone casual, professional. "There's a pattern I'm seeing that doesn't make sense." Silence stretched across the line. She could hear him breathing, probably weighing his options. "Gabe? Look," he finally said. "I shouldn't be talking about this. They've got us under strict orders not to discuss any technical details related to the incident." "Who's they?" Another pause. "Department leadership. Union reps. They've been crawling all over IT since it happened." Naomi pulled up the timestamp data on her screen. The 7-minute gap. That was manually triggered, wasn't it? His sharp intake of breath confirmed it. "How did you know?" "Because I wrote the paper that flagged this exact vulnerability. Someone used the timeout exploit to scrub those files." She softened her voice. "I'm not asking you to confess anything, Gabe. I just need to know if I'm right." She heard him moving, probably checking if anyone was within earshot. "Yeah," he whispered. "Some of those timestamps were manually overridden. That's all I can say. That's enough." "Thank you, Gabe." "Naomi?" His voice cracked slightly. "Be careful, okay? This goes deeper than just Sloan." After hanging up, Naomi stared at her screen for several long moments. The evidence was clear. Someone with high-level system access had deliberately erased crucial footage. This wasn't a glitch or a server failure. This was coordinated obstruction. She opened her encrypted email client and began composing a message to SAC Sharp. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed, but her words were precise and clinical. This wasn't a malfunction. It was a cover-up. Attached, metadata analysis showing coordinated deletion of evidence using known exploit, requesting immediate preservation order for all system logs. As she hit send, movement caught her eye. She rose from her chair, walking to the window. A familiar police cruiser was parked across the street, the same one that had pulled her over. Her jaw tightened as she recognized its number. Unit 47, Sloan's regular patrol car. Through the reflection in her window, Naomi could see her own face. Calm, determined, unafraid. They were trying to intimidate her, but they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd left a digital trail, and following digital trails was exactly what she did best. The bruises on her throat might fade, but evidence, properly preserved, could last forever. The evening news had barely ended when Channel 8's Riverbend Tonight logo flashed across Naomi's TV screen. She sat on her mother's floral print couch, Lila beside her, both women tense as host Jim Barrett introduced his guest, Sergeant Marla Maggs Kessler, the police union representative. Kessler wore her dress blues, badges gleaming under the studio lights. Her salt-and-pepper hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her expression practiced concern. "Let's be clear, Jim," she said, leaning forward. "What we had here was a potentially dangerous situation. An uncooperative driver claiming federal authority with no way to verify it immediately." Lila's hand found Naomi's, squeezing tight. "Lord, give me strength," she muttered. "That woman waved a fake badge to resist arrest," Kessler continued, her voice dripping with manufactured certainty. "Officers followed procedure to protect themselves and the public. Until we complete our investigation, any rush to judgment is irresponsible." "A fake badge?" Naomi's voice cracked with disbelief. Her phone buzzed, the first of what would become a flood of notifications. Barrett, to his credit, pushed back. "But Sergeant, we have video showing." "Partial video," Kessler cut in. "Edited clips don't tell the whole story. Officer Sloan is a decorated veteran with an exemplary record. He deserves due process." Naomi's phone kept vibrating. Messages poured in through social media, most from unfamiliar accounts with American flag avatars and thin blue line symbols in their bios. "Bet that badge came from a costume shop." Another anti-police agitator playing victim. "Should have complied if you didn't want trouble." Lila watched her daughter's face darken. "Don't let them get to you, baby. That's what they want." "I know, Mama." Naomi muted her phone, but couldn't look away from the screen where Kessler was still talking. "Our officers face split-second decisions every day. Monday morning, quarterbacking from people who've never worn the badge." Naomi stood abruptly. "I need some air." She walked to her mother's small back porch, breathing in the humid night air. The bruises on her neck throbbed with her pulse. The next morning brought no relief. ADA Colin Mercer, whom Naomi had met at several interagency briefings, released a statement that made her blood boil. "While the district attorney's office takes all allegations of misconduct seriously, we urge restraint until all facts are known. A thorough review process ensures justice is served appropriately. We ask the public to remain patient as we examine every aspect of this complex situation." Naomi recognized the political dance. Mercer was up for re-election in November. She pulled up campaign finance records on her laptop, and there it was, substantial donations from various LLCs tied to Tyrone Ty Dixon, whose towing company held exclusive contracts for police impounds across 3 districts. Her research was interrupted by her phone ringing. Camilla's name flashed on the screen. "Hello? Naomi?" Camilla's voice was shaking. A man came to my house asking about the video." Naomi sat up straight. "When?" "Just now. He said he was a private investigator." Camilla's words tumbled out between sobs. "He knew where I lived, what kind of car I drive. He said it would be better for everyone if I reconsidered what I saw." "Are you somewhere safe?" "I'm at my sister's." Camilla took a shuddering breath. "I'm scared. Maybe I should just delete the video." "No," Naomi said firmly. "Listen to me carefully. You did nothing wrong. That video is evidence, and I'm not going to let anything happen to you." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I want you to text me your sister's address. I'm going to make some calls, get a protective detail assigned. Then we're going to meet somewhere secure and talk about the best way to preserve that footage. You promise they can't hurt me?" "I promise. You're under federal protection now." Naomi's voice softened. "You were brave enough to record what happened. Let me be brave enough to protect you." After calming Camilla and making the necessary calls, Naomi stood before her bathroom mirror. The bruises were fading, but the anger in her eyes burned brighter than ever. She touched her reflection, remembering how many times she'd seen that same fear in Camilla's voice, in her mother's generation, in countless faces who'd learned to swallow injustice because fighting back seemed impossible. "They want a war," she whispered to her reflection. "They'll get one." At her desk, she opened a hidden folder on her encrypted drive labeled Evidence Chain. Inside were subfolders already organized: body cam metadata, witness statements, financial records, historical complaints. The framework for justice, waiting to be filled. The early morning sun hadn't yet touched the windows of the Homeland Security satellite office when Naomi swiped her keycard. The night guard, Earl, glanced up from his crossword puzzle. "Agent Caldwell? Thought you were on leave." "Just need to check something, Earl." Naomi managed to smile, touching her still tender neck. "Won't be long. Between us, what they did to you ain't right." Earl's weathered face creased with concern. "Take care of yourself, you hear?" The office was empty, fluorescent lights clicking on automatically as she made her way to her desk. Her computer hummed to life, the familiar blue glow washing over her face. She logged in, fingers flying across the keyboard. The evidence preservation order had to be perfect. No loopholes, no wiggle room. She'd seen too many cases crumble because crucial data vanished into routine system maintenance or standard retention policies. 2. Internal Affairs Division, Riverbend Police Department, CC, Federal Consent Decree Monitoring Team. Subject: Immediate Evidence Preservation Notice. Case: JRB 2023-0719. Naomi's jaw tightened as she typed. Every word mattered. Pursuant to ongoing federal investigation and consent decree oversight protocols, this notice demands immediate preservation of all digital and physical evidence related to the July 19th traffic stop involving Officer Trent Sloan. She listed everything: dashcam footage, body cam data, radio transmissions, dispatch logs, plate reader records, database queries, shift reports. But the key was in the technical details. The exact timestamps, server addresses, and backup protocols she knew they couldn't dodge, including all metadata, access logs, and system modification records for the 48 hours preceding and following the incident. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gabe. "At Mickey's Diner. Booth in back. Bring laptop." Naomi hit send on the preservation order, then gathered her things. The diner was 3 blocks away, a worn-down place with cracked vinyl seats and coffee that could strip paint. Perfect for quiet conversations. Gabe Park hunched over a coffee cup, his IT contractor badge still hanging from his neck. His fingers drummed nervously on the tabletop as Naomi slid into the booth. "Anyone follow you?" he asked, voice low. "No." Naomi ordered coffee from a passing waitress. "What did you find?" Gabe pulled out a flash drive, sliding it across the sticky table. "It's worse than I thought. These aren't random glitches in the system." Naomi plugged the drive into her laptop, eyes scanning the data scrolling across her screen. Server logs, access records, timestamp modifications, all color-coded and annotated in Gabe's precise style. "See those patterns?" He pointed to clusters of database changes. "Every night, usually between 2 and 4 a.m. They call them maintenance windows, but look at what's actually happening." Naomi's breath caught. The logs showed systematic alterations to vehicle records, stolen car flags appearing and disappearing, registration status changes, warrant alerts. "They're gaming the system," she whispered, "creating probable cause out of thin air. Been going on for months." Gabe's voice shook slightly. "Your plate getting flagged as stolen? That wasn't random. Someone put that in deliberately, probably minutes before Sloan ran your tags." Naomi's coffee arrived, but she barely noticed. Her mind was racing through implications. Who has access to make these changes? That's the thing. Gabe glanced around nervously. It's not coming from police terminals. Someone's using admin credentials from the city's IT infrastructure. High-level access. Can you trace it? Working on it. But, he hesitated. My cousin June, she's a good cop, tries to do right. She says Sloane's not the only one. There's a whole group of officers who know exactly when to run certain plates, which streets to patrol during these maintenance windows. Naomi's fingers flew across the keyboard, cross-referencing timestamps with patrol patterns. Look at this. Sloane's stops spike dramatically right after these database changes. Always near Dixon's tow yards, Gabe finished. Yeah, I noticed that too. The laptop screen reflected in Naomi's eyes as she copied the files, encrypted them, backed them up to secure servers. This is big, Gabe. This could blow open. A sharp electronic wail cut through the diner's morning quiet. Naomi's car alarm. They both jumped. Through the window, they could see two men in hoodies running from her car. The red sedan's tires were slashed, all four flat against the pavement. Naomi stood slowly, her coffee untouched. Her hands were steady as she packed up her laptop, but her voice was ice. They're watching me now. You need to be careful, Gabe warned, looking pale. These people, they've got reach. Let them watch, Naomi replied, sliding out of the booth. She stared through the window at her crippled car, at the morning sun glinting off broken glass in the parking lot. Her neck throbbed where Sloane's arm had choked her, but her voice was steel. They're watching me now. Good. Let them see exactly what justice looks like coming for them. The diner's bell jingled as she pushed through the door, phone already out to call for a tow. Not Dixon's company, she noted grimly. Never Dixon's. Evening settled over Lila Caldwell's modest brick home like a warm blanket. The porch light cast a gentle glow as Reverend Alphonse Burke climbed the familiar steps, a covered pot of soup warming his weathered hands. His Vietnam veteran's pin caught the light as he rang the doorbell. Lila opened the door, her face brightening. Reverend Burke, always a blessing. Miss Lila, he nodded, entering the house. Brought my mama's recipe. Good for healing, better for the soul. In the living room, Naomi sat surrounded by papers spread across the coffee table. Her neck still showed faint bruising, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Agent Caldwell. Reverend Burke set the soup down. How you holding up? Better now that we're making progress. Naomi gestured to the papers. Though someone slashed my tires this morning. Lord have mercy. Lila shook her head, heading to the kitchen for bowls. They're scared, Burke said, lowering himself into an armchair. Means you're onto something. Naomi showed him the data printouts. Look at these patterns. Every time a car gets flagged as stolen in their system, it's the same story. Black driver, clean record, regular route. Burke adjusted his glasses, studying the pages. Reminds me of something. Back in '92, maybe '93, we had a wave of these stops. Deacon Williams's daughter got pulled over 3 times in 1 month. Each time they said her car was stolen. Cost her nearly $1,000 in towing fees. Dixon's company? Naomi asked, leaning forward. Always Dixon. Man wasn't as powerful then, but he was building. Every stolen car ended up in his yard. Burke's voice carried decades of witnessed injustice. Folk had to choose between paying his fees or losing their vehicles. Lila returned with steaming bowls of soup. That reminds me. She disappeared down the hallway, returning with a worn leather binder. I kept notes from every PTA meeting. Parents would come crying, couldn't pick up their kids because their cars got towed. Naomi took the binder carefully. Inside, her mother's neat handwriting documented years of community pain. March 15, 1994. Mrs. Jackson's car towed from church lot. Police claimed stolen. $375 fee. April 22nd, 1994. Robinson twins late to school. Family car impounded. Mother walking 3 miles to work. Look at the addresses, Burke pointed. All these tows, they cluster around the same patrol zones. Same spots Sloan works today. Naomi grabbed her laptop, pulling up the database logs Gabe had given her. The technology's different now, but the scheme's the same. They're just using computers instead of paper records. She typed rapidly, cross-referencing dates. Every fake stolen flag creates probable cause for a stop. The stop leads to towing. Towing means fees. Fees mean profit. And Dixon's companies have exclusive contracts with the city, Burke added. Been that way 20 years now. Lila spread more papers across the table. Here, PTA minutes from when they tried to challenge the towing rates. City Council shut it down fast. Because Dixon spreads money around, Naomi muttered. Campaign donations, consulting fees. He's got the DA's office, half the council. The machine feeds itself, Burke nodded. Police get their arrest stats, Dixon gets his fees, politicians get their donations. Meanwhile, our people pay and pay. Naomi pulled up another spreadsheet. Look at these numbers. Just in the past 5 years, Dixon's companies have made over $12 million from police-ordered tows. And that's just what's reported. Jesus wept, Lila whispered. And Sloan's one of their top producers, Naomi continued. His stops lead to more tows than any other officer. Now we know why. He's working from a rigged database. She stood, pacing the room. They target people they think can't fight back. Single parents, elderly folks, people working 2 jobs. Can't miss work to fight it in court. Can't afford lawyers. Can't prove the system's rigged against them. Burke finished. Until now, Lila touched a page in her binder. All these years, I thought I was just keeping notes. Didn't know I was gathering evidence. Community memory is evidence, Burke said firmly. Our people remember every injustice, every dollar squeezed out, every dignity denied. Now we've got the receipts to prove it. Naomi stared at the wall of documentation they'd built, her mother's binders, Burke's testimony, Gabe's data logs, her own investigation notes. Decades of systematic predation laid bare. They built an empire off fear, she said quietly, hands clenched. Reverend Burke leaned forward in his chair, his voice carrying the weight of long-fought battles. Then you burn it down with truth. The soup grew cold as they worked late into the night, matching dates, connecting patterns, building their case. Outside, crickets chirped in the darkness, and a patrol car rolled past slowly, its spotlight sweeping across the house's windows. But inside, 3 generations of resistance gathered evidence by lamplight, preparing for justice. 2 days after their evidence-gathering session at Lila's house, Naomi walked along the winding path of Riverside Park. The late afternoon sun sparkled off the water, and joggers passed by in their own worlds of music and momentum. She chose a bench, partially hidden by drooping willows, checking her phone again. Gabe had texted the location an hour ago. Meet my cousin. South End, Willow Bench, 4 p.m. She's taking a huge risk. Right on time, Gabe appeared, hands stuffed in his pockets. Behind him walked a woman in civilian clothes, but Naomi recognized the distinct posture of a police officer. Alert, scanning, weight balanced for quick movement. Officer June Park looked nothing like her cousin. Where Gabe was soft-spoken and slouched, June carried herself with rigid control, though her eyes darted nervously. Agent Caldwell, Gabe said quietly. This is June. June didn't offer her hand. Smart. No physical contact meant deniability. Let's make this quick, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I shouldn't be here. They sat, maintaining casual poses like any group of friends catching up. June kept her head turned slightly away from the main path. "Gabe says you found something in the system," Naomi prompted. June's fingers twitched. "Internal audit files. They're supposed to track which officers input vehicle flags for stolen checks. Most cops might flag 1 or 2 cars a month for legitimate reasons. And Sloan? 20 to 30 flags per week." June's jaw tightened. Always in certain neighborhoods. Always targeting specific demographics. Naomi absorbed this, keeping her face neutral. That's quite a pattern. It gets worse. June glanced around before continuing. The flags always happen right before his shifts, like he's setting up his own probable cause before he even starts patrol. "You have proof." June nodded at Gabe, who pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "Everything's here. Timestamps, officer IDs, geographic clusters. June got me temporary access to the internal server. If they trace this back to me—" June's voice cracked slightly. "They won't," Naomi assured her. "I know how to protect sources. Why come forward now?" June's professional mask slipped, showing raw anger underneath. "Because it's wrong. Because I joined to help people, not to help some corrupt towing magnate steal from struggling families. Because—" She cut herself off, composing herself. "Because Sloan's not the only one. There's a whole network of officers working this scheme." "But you can't testify," Naomi stated. It wasn't a question. "They'll bury me," June confirmed. "I've seen what happens to cops who break ranks. Transferred to the worst beats. Partner with known hotheads. Evidence goes missing when you need backup. Eventually, they force you out, or worse." A child's laugh carried across the park. A family fed ducks by the river's edge. The normalcy felt surreal against their tense conversation. "I understand," Naomi said. "Your anonymity is guaranteed. This helps more than you know." Suddenly, gravel crunched behind them. A black SUV with tinted windows had pulled up to the park's service road, way too fast for the posted limit. 2 men in plain clothes burst out, moving with practiced coordination. "Federal agent!" Naomi shouted, standing. "Stay back!" They ignored her warning. The first man lunged for her bag, while the second tried to pin her arms. Big mistake. Naomi's Homeland Security combat training kicked in automatically. She drove her keys into the first attacker's wrist, feeling bones crack. He screamed, stumbling back. The second man got an elbow to his solar plexus, doubling him over. Naomi followed with a knee to his face. June had already pushed Gabe behind her, weapon half drawn. But the attackers weren't waiting around. They scrambled back to their SUV, leaving drops of blood on the gravel. The vehicle peeled out, no plates visible. The whole attack had lasted maybe 15 seconds. Naomi straightened her jacket, checking that the flash drive was still secure in her pocket. A small cut on her lip dripped blood, and her knuckles would bruise, but she felt oddly calm. June stared at her, clearly reassessing the composed federal agent who'd just efficiently destroyed 2 attackers. "That wasn't random," Naomi said, dabbing her lip with a tissue. "They wanted the drive." She held up the small device, still clenched in her hand. "How are you so calm right now?" June asked. "Because this proves we're right." Naomi pocketed the drive. "They wouldn't send professionals if we weren't onto something big." "I should report this," June said, but her tone was uncertain. "No," Naomi said firmly. "You were never here. This meeting never happened. Go back to work. Keep your head down. I'll handle it from here." June nodded slowly, holstering her weapon. "Be careful. They're not playing around anymore." "Neither am I." Naomi gathered her bag, checking for any dropped papers. Gabe looked pale but determined. "I'll walk you to your car." "Different directions," Naomi corrected. "We leave separately." Normal routines. They parted ways, blending into the regular park crowd. The family was still feeding ducks, oblivious to the violence that had erupted and dissipated mere yards away. Naomi touched her split lip again, the pain focusing her thoughts. The flash drive felt heavy in her pocket, weighted with secrets that someone had just proven were worth attacking a federal agent to protect. The federal building's air conditioning hummed aggressively, chilling the stark conference room where Naomi sat with her evidence spread across the table. Morning light filtered through Venetian blinds, casting stripes across her organized stacks of papers and laptop. Special Agent in Charge Imani Sharp stood by the window, arms crossed, while 3 city oversight monitors settled into their chairs. Their suits looked expensive, their expressions carefully neutral. "Thank you for meeting on short notice," Naomi began, her voice steady despite her split lip still stinging from yesterday's attack. She opened her laptop, connected it to the projector. "I've uncovered evidence of systematic abuse in the police department's vehicle flagging system." The head monitor, Douglas Chen, adjusted his glasses. "Agent Caldwell, we understand you've had a difficult experience." "This isn't about my experience." Naomi pulled up the timestamp data. "Look at these patterns. Every flag entered by Officer Sloan was input during specific maintenance windows. Windows that match a known database exploit." She clicked through screens of code and timestamps. "The exploit creates a brief period where changes aren't properly logged. I documented this vulnerability 2 years ago during a federal audit." The second monitor, Patricia Walsh, tapped her pen. "That's circumstantial." "Then explain this." Naomi switched to a map showing clusters of stops. Every flagged vehicle was stopped within these 3 sectors, all impounded by the same company, all requiring substantial fees to retrieve. Sharp moved closer, studying the pattern. "That's rather precise targeting. And here's the proof it's deliberate." Naomi played an animation showing flag entries synchronized with patrol schedules. Officers input false flags right before their shifts, creating their own probable cause for stops. "Do you have witness statements?" Chen asked. "I have something better." Naomi opened the audit logs June had provided. Internal records showing which officers accessed the system during these windows, plus video evidence of one such stop. "Mine." Walsh leaned forward. "The chokehold incident?" "The attempted cover-up," Naomi corrected. "They tried to erase body cam footage using the same exploit. But I have independent video from a witness." The third monitor had been silent until now. "This is concerning," he admitted. "But we have protocols." "I know the protocols," Naomi interrupted. "I also know criminals destroy evidence when given time." Chen cleared his throat. "We appreciate your thoroughness, Agent Caldwell. We'll review your file thoroughly in about 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Naomi's palm hit the table. "That's exactly how long it takes to erase everything. They're already trying to silence witnesses. Yesterday, 2 men attacked me for this evidence." Sharp's head snapped up. "You didn't report an assault." "Because I handled it. But they're escalating. The longer we wait, the more they'll bury." Walsh spread her hands. "We have a significant backlog. Dozens of cases. How many of those cases show a direct connection between police corruption and systematic theft from minority communities?" Naomi's voice was razor sharp. "How many have both data forensics and video evidence? How many involve federal agents being attacked to suppress evidence?" The monitors exchanged glances. Chen sighed. "We understand your frustration." "No, you don't." Naomi stood, gathering her files. "But you will understand my next steps if you choose inaction over oversight." "Is that a threat, Agent Caldwell?" Walsh asked stiffly. "It's a promise of transparency." Naomi packed her laptop. "I respect this process, but I won't let it become a tool for obstruction." Sharp walked her to the elevator. "They're not wrong about procedures," she said quietly. "Procedures protect systems, not people." Naomi checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Camilla. "Right now, people need protecting." The drive home took twice as long as usual. Naomi spotted the unmarked sedan 3 cars back, matching her every turn. Dark windows, government plates. She took a deliberate series of random turns, confirming the tale. Her phone rang. Camilla's voice trembled. "Naomi, there are people asking questions about me. They talked to my landlord, my neighbors. They know I recorded the video. Are you safe right now? Where are you?" "At my sister's house, but they found my work address too. Stay there. I'm sending someone to take your statement." Naomi hung up, dialing sharp. No answer. At home, Naomi locked her door and powered up her secure computer. She inserted one of several identical flash drives, beginning the encryption process for Camilla's video. The footage copied across multiple drives, each with different encryption keys. Her phone buzzed with texts from June. "They're pulling my shifts." "Reassigned to records." Another from Gabe. "System access revoked. Looking for new job." The encryption program hummed as it worked. Naomi touched her split lip again, feeling the sting of yesterday's attack. They thought fear would silence everyone. They thought procedures and delays would bury the truth. She labeled each drive carefully, preparing secure upload protocols. Let them try to erase this. Let them try to bury it in bureaucracy. Some truths refused to stay hidden. The unmarked car still sat outside her building as darkness fell. Naomi didn't bother closing her curtains. Let them watch. Let them wonder what she was preparing. She wrote the final encryption key in her notebook, triple-checking each character. They thought fear always won. Time to show them what exposure could do. Night settled over Riverbend City as Naomi sat at her kitchen table, the glow of her laptop screen reflecting off her glasses. 3 email drafts waited, each addressed to a different journalist known for investigative integrity. She had vetted them carefully. No connections to local power players, no history of backing down under pressure. Her encrypted file contained everything. Camilla's high-resolution video, timestamp analyses, audit logs, patrol patterns, impound records, and a detailed timeline connecting all the players. She had scrubbed the metadata, routed through secure servers, made the trail impossible to trace back to her. "Send," she whispered, clicking 3 times. The emails disappeared into cyberspace. No going back now. Her phone buzzed. "Lila, come over for breakfast tomorrow?" "Wouldn't miss it, Mama." Sleep came fitfully. Naomi woke before dawn, driving carefully to her mother's house. As she pulled up, her phone exploded with notifications. The story had broken. Channel 4's morning show played the footage in devastating clarity. The anchor's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Warning. These images are disturbing." Recently obtained video shows the moment Homeland Security agent Naomi Caldwell was placed in a chokehold by Officer Trent Sloan during what was supposedly a routine traffic stop. The screen split. On one side, Naomi gasping for air as Sloan crushed her throat. On the other, her badge clearly visible as backup arrived. The contrast was shocking. Inside, Lila already had coffee brewing. They watched together as social media erupted. Justice for Naomi trended. Protesters began gathering outside the police precinct, their signs demanding accountability. Channel 7 cut to Mags Kessler outside police headquarters. Her usual composure had cracked. "This is a coordinated attack on law enforcement. That video is selectively edited." The anchor interrupted. "Sergeant Kessler, we have the complete footage. Are you suggesting the federal badge Agent Caldwell displayed was somehow edited into the video?" Kessler's face reddened. "No comment at this time." Lila squeezed Naomi's hand as they watched ADA Mercer literally run from reporters outside the courthouse. "No statement today," he called over his shoulder, diving into his car. By noon, City Councilman Marcus Rivera had called an emergency press conference. In light of this disturbing evidence, I am demanding an immediate public oversight hearing. The people deserve answers about this apparent pattern of abuse. Naomi's phone rang. Sharp. The oversight monitors just expedited your case. Funny how sunshine changes priorities. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, Naomi replied. Be careful, Sharp warned. They're cornered now. That makes them dangerous. Throughout the day, more details emerged. Other victims of similar stolen car stops came forward. Ty Dixon's impound empire faced fresh scrutiny. Officer June Park gave an anonymous interview about quota pressures. The wall of silence began to crack. Reverend Burke called to say his church would host a community meeting that weekend. People need to tell their stories, he said. Your courage opened the door. By evening, Naomi was exhausted, but hopeful. She helped Lila prepare a simple dinner of pot roast and vegetables, comfort food from her childhood. They ate quietly, the TV muted, but still showing protest footage. Your father would be so proud, Lila said softly, reaching across the table. He always said, the truth needs warriors. Naomi nodded, throat tight. Her father had been a civil rights attorney, fighting these same battles decades ago. It's not over yet. No, Lila agreed. But for the first time in years, I feel like maybe, just maybe, something will change. They cleaned up together, mother and daughter moving in comfortable sync. Through the window, stars pierced the city's haze. For the first time since the attack, Naomi's shoulders relaxed slightly. The familiar weight of her badge rested against her hip, not a shield to hide behind, but a tool for justice. She had transformed her pain into purpose, her anger into action. The system designed to protect corruption now faced the harsh light of truth. Outside, a car engine idled in the darkness. But tonight, Naomi refused to let fear steal this moment of peace. She helped her mother package leftovers, their quiet conversation a balm against the chaos they knew was coming. This was what hope felt like. Fragile, but fierce, like the first breath after being underwater too long. Whatever tomorrow brought, tonight they had forced the machine to blink. Tonight, truth was breathing. Morning sunlight glinted off the precinct's windows as Naomi pulled into the visitor parking lot. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes reaching skyward like metal trees. She spotted Sharp waiting by the front steps, arms crossed, face tight with concern. Reporters swarmed before Naomi could even close her car door. Microphones thrust toward her face as questions pelted like hail. Agent Caldwell, any response to the union's allegations? What evidence do you have of systemic abuse? Is this a federal investigation now? Naomi kept her face neutral, years of training kicking in. No comment at this time. She moved steadily through the crowd, Sharp falling in beside her. The precinct lobby's air conditioning hit her like a wall. Officers watched from behind the front desk, their expressions unreadable. Sharp guided her toward a conference room, but a commotion from the TV mounted on the wall stopped them cold. ADA Colin Mercer stood at a podium outside the courthouse, his carefully styled hair catching the morning light. His voice filled the lobby. After reviewing evidence brought to my attention, I am announcing that Naomi Caldwell is under active investigation for impersonating authority and obstructing justice during a lawful traffic stop. The room spun. Naomi grabbed the wall for support as Mercer continued. We have reason to believe Agent Caldwell may have used fraudulent credentials to interfere with legitimate police work. This office takes such allegations very seriously. He's lying, Naomi whispered. Sharp's hand gripped her elbow. We need to move, now. But before they could reach the conference room, the lobby doors burst open. 3 federal agents in dark suits strode in, badges out. Naomi recognized the lead agent, Marcus Chen from Internal Affairs. Agent Caldwell, Chen said, his voice professionally blank. I need you to surrender your credentials and service weapon pending investigation. The room went silent. Every eye watched as Naomi slowly unclipped her badge case. Her fingers trembled slightly as she handed over the shield that had been part of her identity for over a decade. Her gun came next, the weight leaving her hip feeling unnaturally light. You are suspended with pay, effective immediately, Chen continued. Please do not leave the jurisdiction without notification. Your email access and building credentials are temporarily deactivated. Sharp started to protest, but Chen cut her off. This comes from the top, SAC Sharp. I suggest you comply. Outside, reporters pressed against the glass, cameras flashing. Naomi felt naked under their gaze, stripped of her authority in front of the very people who had attacked her. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. Across town, police were executing a search warrant at Gabe Park's home, citing unauthorized access of government systems and data theft. Photos showed them carrying out his computers and hard drives. Another message: June Park had been reassigned to midnight patrol in the industrial district, effective immediately. Her precinct locker had already been emptied. Naomi's hands shook as she tried to pull up Camilla's video. Error messages filled the screen. Every upload, every link, gone. Removed for copyright violation. They're erasing everything, she said. Sharp walked her to her car, keeping her body between Naomi and the cameras. Go home. Don't talk to anyone. Let me work my channels. The drive home passed in a blur. Naomi's apartment felt foreign, too quiet, too dark. She stood in her home office, staring at the empty spot on her desk where her badge case usually sat. They think they won, she whispered to the silence. Her phone lit up with a message from Gabe. They missed one copy. Naomi sank into her chair, mind racing. In less than 12 hours, they had stripped away her authority, scattered her allies, and begun erasing the evidence. The machine wasn't just fighting back, it was trying to bury her completely. The raid on Gabe's house would intimidate other whistleblowers. June's reassignment sent a clear message to other officers thinking of speaking up. The video takedown showed their reach into tech companies, and Mercer, his false investigation gave them legal cover to discredit everything she might say next. A perfect operation, executed with precision, born from decades of practice. Her mother called twice, but Naomi let it go to voicemail. She couldn't talk yet, couldn't process the shock of losing the badge she'd earned through years of sacrifice and dedication. Outside, a news helicopter circled, its searchlight sweeping the neighborhood. Online, trolls were already spreading Mercer's accusations, painting her as an anti-police activist who had faked federal credentials. The system she had served faithfully for years had turned on her with breathtaking efficiency. Every safeguard she thought she had, her badge, her reputation, her evidence, had been stripped away in a matter of hours. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. The message was simple. Got your back. Stay strong. C. Camilla. Still fighting despite everything. Naomi stared at her empty badge case, the light from her phone casting shadows on its worn leather. They had taken her shield, but they couldn't take her truth. She knew what she had seen, what she had endured, what the evidence proved. The machine thought it had won. But machines didn't understand the power of human dignity, of righteous anger, of unshakable truth. The church basement smelled of old hymnals and coffee. A single bulb cast yellow light over the folding table where Naomi and her allies gathered, their shadows dancing on concrete walls. Outside, crickets chirped in the humid night air. Reverend Burke locked the door behind June, the last to arrive. Nobody followed you. June shook her head. Took 3 different routes. Made sure I was clean. Lila squeezed Naomi's hand under the table. The loss of her daughter's badge weighed heavily on both of them. Camilla sat nervously checking her phone, while Gabe spread his surviving files across the scratched wooden surface. "They got most of my hard drives," Gabe said, "but I kept backups on paper. Old school." He pulled manila folders from his backpack. "Screenshots of every database edit, printed and notarized last week." Naomi nodded. "Smart. They can't delete paper." June added her own stack. "Internal memos about towing quotas. Been collecting these for months." Her hands trembled slightly. "If they find out I took these—" "They won't," Naomi assured her. "We protect our own." Lila opened her weathered leather bag, pulling out decades of PTA meeting minutes. Every parent who lost a car. Every complaint about impound fees. Names, dates, addresses. I kept it all. The group began sorting through the documents, creating a timeline on the basement wall with tape and string. Patterns emerged in the yellow light. Certain officers' names appeared repeatedly, specific neighborhoods targeted, the same towing company always involved. "Look at this," Reverend Burke said, pointing to a yellowed newspaper clipping. 1989. Officer Matthew Dixon promoted to captain. He tapped another article. 1990. Dixon marries Patricia Sloan. Sloan? Naomi's head snapped up. Like Officer Trent Sloan? His uncle, Burke confirmed. That same year, Ty Dixon, Matthew's brother, got his first city towing contract. The family's been feeding off this community ever since. Camilla spread out her phone records. "I've got timestamps proving where your car was when Sloan claimed it was stolen. Plus, screenshots of every social media post they tried to delete." June studied the wall of evidence. The deeper you dig, the dirtier it gets. Last month alone, Sloan's squad impounded 63 vehicles. 58 went to Dixon's lots. And the owners had to pay thousands to get them back, Lila added. Some never could. Lost their jobs, couldn't drive their kids to school. Naomi stood, tracing the connections with her finger. Sloan creates false alerts. Dixon tows the cars. The captain, his uncle by marriage, buries complaints. And Mercer. She pulled up campaign finance records on her phone. Look, Mercer's biggest donor last quarter, River City Small Business Alliance. Guess who sits on their board? Ty Dixon, Gabe finished. They built a perfect machine, Naomi said. Police, politics, profits, all connected. That's why they hit back so hard when I threatened it. Reverend Burke's deep voice cut through the tension. Machines only work in the dark, child. Bring them into God's light, they fall apart. The court system's rigged, June said. Internal affairs is compromised. Even the federal monitors are dragging their feet. Then we don't fight this in court, Naomi said, her voice hardening with resolve. We fight it in daylight. She began sorting documents into piles. Gabe, digitize everything. Multiple copies, different servers. June, we need those audit logs officially notarized. Camilla, get your video to every news outlet, not just local ones. I'll speak to the congregation, Reverend Burke said. Time people knew the true cost of law and order in this town. Lila studied her daughter's face. What's your plan? We build a case so strong, so public, they can't bury it. Naomi's fingers traced her empty badge clip. Every victim, every dollar, every connection, all of it exposed. Let the community see exactly who's been robbing them. They worked through the night, scanning, copying, organizing. The wall of evidence grew until it covered half the basement. Years of systematic theft and corruption laid bare under the harsh light. June's police radio crackled occasionally, reminding them of the danger. But in that basement, surrounded by truth and allies, fear felt distant. Remember, Naomi said as they prepared to leave, They expect us to fight this their way. In courtrooms, through channels. That's how they control the narrative. But we're not playing their game anymore, Camilla finished, newfound steel in her voice. They packed evidence copies into separate cars, each taking different routes home. Naomi was last to leave, standing with Reverend Burke in the empty basement. My daddy used to say sunshine's the best disinfectant, Burke mused. And we're about to throw open all the windows, Naomi replied. Above them, the church bell began to toll midnight, its deep resonance shaking dust from the rafters. 12 solemn rings echoed through the empty streets, marking the hour when secrets began their journey into light. Naomi whispered, "Then we don't fight this in court. We fight it in daylight." The final bell tone faded into silence. Dawn painted Riverbend City in shades of orange and gold. Naomi sat at her kitchen table, 3 laptops running simultaneously. Coffee grew cold beside her as her fingers flew across keyboards, encrypting files and preparing secure uploads. "Time to light the match," she muttered, double-checking each recipient address. Her mouse hovered over the send button. One click would blast their evidence to the Washington Post, CNN, ProPublica, the DOJ Civil Rights Division, and every federal oversight monitor on record. Her phone buzzed. A text from June. "Shift change happening. Now's the time." Naomi pressed send. Confirmation messages popped up one by one. She texted back, "Packages delivered. Your turn." Across town, June Park sat in her patrol car, parked along a quiet suburban street beneath the glow of a street lamp. Her hands trembled as she connected a thumb drive to her department laptop. The audit logs she'd secretly compiled over months began uploading to an anonymous whistleblower site. Each entry showed officer ID numbers, Sloan's appearing again and again, manually inserting stolen vehicle flags into the database. Her phone lit up with a message from Gabe. "Got the logs. Starting stream in 10. In his apartment, surrounded by computer monitors, Gabe Park adjusted his webcam. He'd spent all night setting up a live demonstration that would show exactly how the database exploitation worked. His audience was already growing. Journalists, activists, and tech watchdogs had received private links. "Good morning," he began, voice steadier than he felt. "I'm a city IT contractor, and I'm about to show you how certain officers abused our system to target innocent citizens." His screen shared a sanitized version of the database interface. "Watch Officer ID number 4487. That's Trent Sloan. Input false stolen vehicle flags. Notice the timestamp patterns. Notice how they cluster around specific neighborhoods." Across social media, his stream began to spread. Tech reporters live-tweeted his revelations. Data journalists started building visualization graphs of the patterns. Meanwhile, Camilla sat in Reverend Burke's office, uploading her original full-resolution video to secure cloud storage. The footage was crystal clear, far better than the compressed versions that had circulated online. Every detail of Sloan's assault on Naomi was visible in sharp HD. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered, sharing access with trusted reporters. By mid-morning, the story exploded. National news networks picked up the feeds. Local talk radio hosts who'd defended Sloan went silent as their phone lines jammed with angry callers. Social media lit up with graphs showing years of predatory patterns. Naomi's phone rang. Sharp's number. "I hope you know what you're doing," her boss said without preamble. "Just letting the truth breathe," Naomi replied. The deputy director saw the Washington Post story. "He's interested." "Good. Tell him to keep watching." Sergeant Marla "Mags" Kessler appeared on the morning shows, trying to maintain control. Her usual confident smile looked strained. "This is clearly a coordinated attack by federal officials who don't understand local policing," she insisted. These so-called patterns are just good officers doing proactive work in high-crime areas. But the hosts pushed back now, armed with data. They showed her the audit logs, the financial connections, the video evidence. Her responses grew defensive, hostile. "This is federal theatrics," she finally snapped. "They're manipulating data to attack good cops." The hashtag #ChartFederalTheatrics started trending, but not the way mags intended. Citizens shared their own stories of impound scams. Church groups posted years of documented complaints. Former officers came forward with similar tales from other districts. In her apartment, Naomi watched it all unfold on multiple screens. Her evidence wall had grown to cover an entire room. Photos, documents, connections mapped in red string. Years of systematic abuse laid bare. Lila brought her fresh coffee. "You didn't just expose Sloan," she said. "You exposed their whole rotten system." "The system protected him because he fed it," Naomi replied. "Take down one. You threaten them all." Her phone buzzed again. A message from June. "Officers talking about damage control. They're scared." Another from Gabe. "Server logs show them trying to alter backdates. Too late. We have it all." Camilla texted, "News vans outside the precinct. Protesters too. This is really happening." Naomi stood before her evidence wall, sipping coffee that finally tasted sweet. Each document represented a victim, each connection a strand in the web that had trapped her community for decades. Now those strands were unraveling in the light. Her mother squeezed her shoulder. "You okay, baby?" "I'm good, Mama." Naomi touched her empty badge clip. "Just thinking about all the people who lost their cars, their jobs, their dignity to this racket. Some probably never recovered. But now everyone knows the truth," Lila said. Naomi nodded slowly, studying Sloane's photo among the evidence. The man who thought he could choke her into silence had instead triggered his own department's exposure. Beyond his face, red strings led to union reps, towing magnates, political donors, all now squirming under public scrutiny. She turned to her laptop, where headlines continued to multiply. The truth was spreading faster than they could spin it. No more shadows to hide in, no more victims to quietly squeeze. "Your move, Sloan," she whispered. The city council chambers hummed with tension. Every seat was filled, with people standing 3 deep along the walls. Church fans fluttered in the stuffy air as Reverend Burke and Lila Caldwell sat dignified in the front row, backs straight and faces stern. Security guards flanked the entrance. News cameras lined the back wall. In the center, a long table faced the council members' elevated platform. Naomi took her seat alongside Camilla, June, and Gabe. Across the aisle, Sloan slouched between his union rep and lawyer, his usual swagger deflated, but still trying to project defiance. The council president's gavel cracked. "This oversight hearing is now in session. All witnesses have been sworn in. Agent Caldwell, you may begin." Naomi stood, her voice steady and clear. "Council members, what happened to me wasn't random. It was part of a systematic abuse of power that's been bleeding our community for years." She nodded to Gabe, who pulled up the first slide. "This is Officer Sloane's database activity log," she continued. "Over 3 years, he flagged 847 vehicles as potentially stolen. Of those, 92% were registered to Black or Latino owners, and 89% were towed to facilities owned by Tyrone Dixon's company. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sloan shifted uncomfortably. "Each tow generated fees averaging $750, Naomi explained. "That's over $500,000 extracted from our neighborhoods through false flags and forced impounds." June Park spoke next, her voice trembling but determined. "As a patrol officer, I witnessed Sergeant Kessler implement monthly quotas for vehicle stops and impounds. Officers who met these quotas received preferential assignments and overtime opportunities. Those who questioned the practice were reassigned to undesirable shifts. Sergeant Kessler started to object, but the council president silenced her with a raised hand. Gabe's presentation shifted to financial records. "These are campaign contribution records for ADA Colin Mercer," he said. "Notice the pattern of donations from shell companies, all traced back to Dixon's towing empire. Each spike in contributions correlates with decisions not to investigate impound complaints." The chamber grew hot with whispers and gasps. Lila dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief as Reverend Burke gripped her hand. "And now," Naomi said, "I'd like to show the unedited footage of my encounter with Officer Sloan." The lights dimmed. Camilla's high-definition video filled the wall screen. The quality was stunning, every detail crystal clear. They watched Naomi signal and pull over properly, saw her hands visible and non-threatening, heard her calm voice explaining the car was registered to her. Then came the violence, the chokehold, Naomi's desperate attempts to speak, the badge revelation, Sloane's contemptuous reaction. Several council members flinched visibly. When the lights came up, Camilla spoke softly but firmly. "I recorded this because I've seen too many people hurt by cops who abuse their power. Agent Caldwell could have died that day. How many others weren't lucky enough to have a badge?" The council president leaned forward. "Officer Sloan, do you wish to respond to these allegations?" Sloan exploded out of his chair, face red. "She reached for my gun. I was defending myself. This is all a setup." "That's not what the video shows," Naomi cut in coldly. The chamber fell silent at her quiet certainty. "The video's doctored," Sloan shouted, taking a step toward her. "You people always—" "Remove him," the council president ordered. Security officers moved in quickly, escorting a struggling Sloan from the chamber as he continued shouting accusations. Sergeant Kessler tried damage control. "Council members, these officers were simply following established protocols. Protocols that violated the consent decree," Naomi interrupted. "Protocols designed to generate profit through targeted harassment." The oversight chief, a stern woman with steel-gray hair, stood up. "I've seen enough. I am recommending immediate criminal charges against Officer Sloan for assault, false imprisonment, and civil rights violations. Furthermore, I am calling for a full investigation into Sergeant Kessler's quota system, Mr. Dixon's contracts, and ADA Mercer's campaign finances." The chamber erupted in applause. Church fans waved like victory flags. Reverend Burke's deep "Amen" carried over the noise. As security led him past the witness table, Sloane's eyes met Naomi's. The arrogance had drained from his face, replaced by something hollow and lost. He looked away first. June squeezed Naomi's hand under the table. Camilla wiped tears from her cheeks. Gabe sat back, exhausted but satisfied. In the gallery, Lila Caldwell watched her daughter with fierce pride. The elderly woman who'd counseled generations of children through systemic injustice now saw that same system cracking under the weight of truth. Reverend Burke's rich voice carried through the tumult. "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." The council president's gavel cracked again for order as more charges were read out. But Naomi barely heard them. She was watching Sloane's retreating back, not with satisfaction or revenge, but with the steady gaze of justice finally served. 2 weeks had passed since the hearing. Naomi stood before her office mirror, adjusting her reinstated Homeland Security badge. The morning sun caught the gold emblem, making it shine. Her new title read, Joint Task Force Commander, Public Corruption Division. The bruises on her neck had faded, but the memory remained sharp. Her phone buzzed with a text from June Park. "Did you see the news? Mags just resigned." Naomi clicked the link. There was Sergeant Marla Mags Kessler, once the untouchable police union representative, being escorted from headquarters. No more swagger, no more smug press conferences. The Internal Affairs investigation had uncovered years of quota enforcement and evidence tampering. Now she left in disgrace, badge and pension stripped away. The morning headlines scrolled across Naomi's computer screen. ADA Mercer withdraws from election amid corruption probe. His donor list had become toxic after federal investigators traced the money back to Ty Dixon's network of shell companies. The promised tough-on-crime candidate now faced possible indictment himself. Speaking of Dixon, his towing empire lay in ruins. Federal agents had frozen his accounts and seized his yards. The man who'd built his fortune on stolen cars and manufactured crimes now faced RICO charges. His sleek office sat empty, the phones silent. Naomi's desk phone rang. It was Reverend Burke. "We're ready whenever you are, child," he said warmly. The first restitution checks came in. She grabbed her keys. On my way. The church parking lot was full when she arrived. Familiar faces from the neighborhood filled the pews. Elderly folks who'd lost cars to false impounds, parents who'd had to choose between unfair fees and feeding their children, young people who'd learned to fear police lights in their rearview mirrors. Reverend Burke stood at the pulpit, his Vietnam service medals gleaming on his jacket. Behind him, a table held stacks of certified checks, compensation ordered by the federal court. Today, he announced, his deep voice filling the sanctuary, we see justice made tangible. These checks won't erase the fear or heal all wounds, but they mark a victory over those who thought they could prey on us forever. One by one, community members came forward. Mrs. Washington, who'd lost her car the day before her daughter's wedding. Mr. Rodriguez, whose work truck was impounded on false pretenses, costing him his contracting business. Teenage Marcus, whose first car was towed the same day he got his license. Each had a story. Each received not just a check, but their dignity back. Naomi spotted Officer June Park in civilian clothes, sitting quietly in the back. Their eyes met in silent understanding. The good cop who'd risked everything to expose the truth had found her own kind of redemption. Someone whispered, "Did you hear about Sloan?" Naomi had. The former officer took a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison for civil rights violations. No badge, no pension, no more power to abuse. His attempt to paint himself as the victim had crumbled under the weight of Camilla's crystal-clear video evidence. Lila arrived as the ceremony was ending. She hugged several elderly church members who remembered her from her counseling days. These were the people she'd comforted when their cars disappeared, when their children came home traumatized by routine stops. "Ready for a walk?" Lila asked her daughter. They strolled the 3 blocks to Dixon's main impound lot. The heavy chains that once secured the gate lay cut on the ground. Inside, flatbed trucks were loading cars to return them to their rightful owners. The fortress of fear had fallen. Children played tag through the open gate, their laughter replacing the old sounds of angry arguments and crying families. Community volunteers helped detail the rescued vehicles, erasing the dust of false imprisonment. From the nearby church tower, bells began to ring. Reverend Burke pulled the rope with steady hands, sending deep, clear tones across the neighborhood. Each toll spoke of justice served, of dignity restored, of truth finally heard. Naomi watched a grandmother climb into her recovered car, tears streaming down her face as the engine started perfectly. All those years of maintenance in Dixon's yard hadn't destroyed it after all. "You know," Lila said softly, "your father used to say that justice moves slow, but it moves sure when good people push it forward." Naomi nodded, remembering the moment Sloane's arm had closed around her throat. The terror, the fury, the determination not to let him win. She turned to her mother, voice steady and clear. "He tried to take my breath," she said. I gave him truth instead." The church bells continued their song of victory as mother and daughter watched another car drive free through the open gates, heading home at last. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.